Like I would literally get so payday loans, for those who may not know, are literally loans that fund you next to next payday. So you send in, and it really was either no social security, like no credit requirement, or was a very low score requirement. But you would send in your pay stubs, and it would basically advance you whatever your payday was. And when you got paid, they will automatically debit your bank account for whatever it was you were due to them. And I remember at one point I had 3 payday loans at a time because I needed a payday loan to cover another payday loan because I just didn't have enough to get through to the next payday.
Mm.
And it felt so suffocating because those loans were like, and I'm not even exaggerating. That was why I think the FDIC mandated some issues behind them, because they were like 800-900% yields on those things.
Hey, 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 everyone, and welcome to Money Talks Wealth Beyond Numbers. And I am your host, Dr. Constance Craig Mason, and I am here with an awesome guest. Her name is Kellé Thorpe, and she is the CEO of Kommas with Kellé. And I'm going to bring her on in a brief second just to give you some insights into who she is and how she serves. But I just wanted to remind you all that wealth is not just about the numbers on a spreadsheet. It's not just about the assets under management. It really is about the journey that you're on as you're discovering your new self as your money grows and expands. So, this conversation I'm actually looking forward to because even though I have lots of colleagues that I partner with and that I'm having conversations with often, I haven't had a financial conversation about money and emotions and success with a financial colleague so far. So I'm so excited to chat with Kellé and see her perspective on how it is that she is navigating her entrepreneurial journey and how it is that she is serving those successful women who are 6 and 7 figure earners, I've heard. So please, Kellé, please take it away and give our audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, Dr. Constance. I'm excited. I can always geek out with other finance people in conversations like this. So I too am very excited. Hi, everyone. I'm Kellé Thorpe. So I'm the founder and CEO of Commerce with Kellé. And as a fractional CFO and strategic advisory firm, we help women led service based entrepreneurs that are typically, they've gotten to their first million, and we always need more money, but they don't have money problems. They have some mindset issues on how to scale and grow and structure to that next level. So, what we do is help them in that place of scaling and growing with intention. So my work really sits at the intersection of business performance and personal wealth, is what I tell people. I help CEOs to move out of survival mode and into the revenue is there. Let's put these things into place. How do your numbers actually support what you're building, and really leverage your cash flow for long term legacy planning?
That was a mouthful, but it seems as if we need somebody like you, Kellé, because we are doing the work,
Yeah.
passionpreneurs. We're out here serving and helping other people. But oftentimes, like you said, it's not a money issue. It really comes down to how are we seeing ourselves as the servant leaders that we are? And how does that translate to the revenue that we bring in? How does that translate to those that are looking to us, such as maybe even our kids or our grandkids, depending on age? But it really is, and I love to say it this way, it really is a journey. Right? We're constantly developing our story as it goes. And I love to have you on because, you as a practitioner in this field have your own money story. And I want to say that when we had talked before now, we had shared that we had a similarity of not really growing up with a silver spoon in their mouth, as they say. I know I had a scarcity background growing up with a single mom who was challenged in a lot of ways. I watched my mom go through all the different stages of womanhood and motherhood and marriage and all the things. And I always shout her out as someone who is very resilient, someone who's always giving of herself And I wanted to see her one day just be able to shine on her own, right? Not just so focused on the kids, not just so focused on the grands. So, in your experience coming along, maybe in your young adult life or however, had you seen any residuals of what you experienced as a child going into your career?
Yeah, of course, most definitely. We do. We share a very similar story. My mother also was a single mom and she worked really hard. I had been a latchkey kid since the third grade. I'd wake up, my mom was already gone to work, and we'd get home from school and my mom was still at work. So I had to learn very quickly how to take care of me and my brother because of that. She worked really hard as a single mom. And with that, I had that same drive and resilience and tenacity. So I'd gotten my first in the area I lived in, you had to volunteer, do a certain number of volunteer hours to graduate from high school. So I was awarded top volunteer of in the county for the year. I think we had to do like something like 200 hours through your 4 years of high school. I had done over 1,500 hours of community
Oh
service.
my goodness. Wow.
Absolutely love serving. It's who I am. It's a part. It's always been that way, and I'd done it from the age of 13. So by the time I was old enough to get a job, I had already literally been working,
Mm,
supporting teenagers. That's what I used to do. Was I used to find places for teens to go to get them off the streets because I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood.
okay.
So I would plan programs with my local recreation department on Friday and Saturday nights for them to come into a safe place and get in off the street and have different programs to do. And so, with that and working that hard through childhood and then becoming an adult, everything I learned was mostly through failure of my finances, right? I didn't grow up learning money management. I didn't grow up really reading much books aside from your math and knowing how to do math in school, which that's a whole different topic of why they don't teach actual financial management in high school. But I think they are getting more towards that. But for me, I learned when I screwed up my credit. I'll never forget. I got my first credit card. I got off the bus in the 12th grade and a card was in the mail. All I had to do was call this number and activate this card.
What?
Called the number, Constance, activated the card, and went straight to the mall. The mall was walking distance from my house. I walked straight to the mall. Within 2 hours, maxed out this $500 credit card.
Mhm.
I know it took I probably paid them back at least $1,500 on that $500 credit card because I didn't know. I just knew I could spend 500 and pay $20 a month, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I just paid the minimum. And so it wasn't until my early 20s that I'm like, okay, I should probably start paying this off. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was mistakes like that. And I'm a teen mom. I had my first child at 19. And so growing up that way, I always had to figure out when's my next payment coming in. What's the next income? I lived off of payday loans at one point in time. And that was a very tough season for me. So, growing through all of those places and while going through the corporate ladder and working my way up through corporate, I've worked in all areas of accounting in my career, but I also went to college while working. So I was always a working adult in college. So, of course, with that, it took me longer. I didn't have the traditional college journey. But by the time I had gotten my degree, I was already a director in finance and corporate. And I had learned how to manage not just my finances, but a business,
Yeah.
actual corporate entity's finances. But all of that was definitely something that I learned through trial and error, quite frankly. And it has carried me into where I am now in business. I think when we talked, I had shared the story where I literally was working with my advisor and she had to call me out on things that I was still doing in the scarcity space, like still treating my business like I was a W-2 employee.
Right.
And I was like, man, I didn't even think of it that way. Like, I'm still working and worried about maxing out a 401k when I'm beyond maxing out a 401k. Like, it's more important things that I need. But even me and finance and what I tell, it just didn't translate to me. It was like Yeah, I'm still in. So it is. It's something I feel like we overcome as we continue to grow, but I don't think we 100% overcome. It's always in the back of who we are. And we have to be reminded, oh, there it is again. Let me reset. I know what this looks like and let me think differently.
You said a mouthful, and I could relate to so much of that. My husband and I were talking about a story where I was a young single mom myself, and I was walking at the time. I didn't even have a car. And I used to go and do my regular, supermarket shopping and different things. And I had two little kids at the time. And I would walk past the bank. Banks change names, they purchase each other and all this kind of stuff. But this was back before Bank of America was created. And it was the bank before that. And I would always walk by this bank and I would see people with these, what they would call back then, the ATM cards. This is
Mhm.
before Visa debit. I'm aging myself, right? But they had just the plastic ATM cards. And I would walk by and I would see these people at the machine just taking out cash. And I was thinking to myself, well, how are they taking this cash out? I was so confused because I'm like, is it free money? Like, what is going on? And I had remembered that, and I'm dating myself again. There used to be, I think it's called Columbia House or something, where you could get like a bunch of CDs for like a penny, or, you could get like a bunch of them for free, and then you would pay for one full price. And so I'm young. I want all the hottest, records and everything. And so I didn't realize that once they send that invoice back to the house that I would have to pay. And oftentimes I didn't have the money. So that was my first experience ever going to like collections or something, because I didn't pay the CD thing, right? And so when I didn't realize the connection between having collections or good credit or bad credit, that the banks would even look at that when they would be opening up a checking account. So I had already been declined for a checking account when I'm seeing these people at the ATM machine. So I'm just feeling like, you know how they talk about access and opportunities? Like I'm walking past the bank with my two little kids and I'm seeing people do their regular everyday banking. And I'm feeling like an outsider because I'm like, how is it that they can get an account and I can't get an account? And they have this plastic thing and I didn't even know that it was their own money. I'm just like, is the bank giving out money that I'm just not able to get? But it just goes back to like you were talking about with that $500 access to this credit, us not understanding that this is leverage. They're giving you their money and you have to be responsible with it. So then you could grow that relationship with the lender and so on and so forth. So I just think that you mentioned financial literacy not being as popular or as opportunistic as we'd like it to be in schools. I know in my area, I'm in Pennsylvania, we now have it where for the upcoming school year, it's been legislated that half a credit goes to financial literacy, at least for these seniors that are coming up. And so I'm super excited about that for them because it's a requirement for graduation. So we're making some progress, but we'd like to see more of that because I just felt like, how is it that they can get this account and get this money? I'm like, why nobody told me nothing?
It's funny because I've heard people's children say that, like, "Why don't you just use that card?" Like, they don't realize it, and
Yeah.
thankfully, because I have not wanted to create the same things that I had to go through and learn the hard mistakes, our kids will learn their own share of errors and mistakes, right? So the ones that I can help them to not make, I try to do that. So my kids, it's like, no, they know this card comes with it's some money behind this card, and this
Right.
is what you do. And so they got their own cards very early, the checking account for children very early. I got them the debit cards. And my son who's 24, he didn't have a phone. My daughter, she's 15. She has a phone and her car is connected to the phone. And it's
Okay.
funny because she even had an experience recently where her card they were replacing the cards. It didn't expire, but they were replacing, I think they were moving from like Master to card to Visa, her Capital One account or
Wow.
something.
Okay.
So they were replacing her little debit card. Her new debit card mail probably came in the mail like 2 months before.
Mhm.
He had memorized her debit card number, but
Wow.
she didn't want to use the new card. And so I told her, I said, Candace, at some point, your old car is not going to work anymore. So you need to set up your new car on your Apple Pay. And she's like, no, it's fine. It's still working. What happened? March 31st came and that car did not work no more. And she was at Target and she was like, I had money. I was so embarrassed, mom,
Mhm.
because I went to pay
Yep.
and the car wouldn't work. Oh, well,
You
and her
gotta listen
friends
to
were
your
like
parents now.
yeah, and she said her friends were picking on her, was like and she was like, "I know, I can show you, I have money. I don't know why my car is not working." But stuff like that is even a lesson, and it's a different lesson that was rewarding for me, for her to learn too, how to manage her money differently than when I went to Landover Mall and literally maxed out $500 in less than
Right.
2 hours.
Exactly. And you mentioned a little bit earlier when you were sharing about how you handle your personal finances may spill over to how you handle your business finances too. Have you had that experience of even dealing with your own clients where they're sharing that, like, I make good money, I don't have the scarcity of assets, but I don't know what is this P&L statement they keep talking about? What I'm trying to grow my business and I don't have the documents and the things that these lenders or even sometimes for grant opportunities, you need to have all your paperwork together. Are you finding that some of these women just don't understand on the business side how it should be working?
Certainly. So I would think there's 2 things that come to mind when you ask that question. The first one is a lot of them have been scorned from debt. So they are still managing their mindset. They probably are in great place for personal debt. They've gotten themselves out of personal debt. They're managing personal debt well, so they're afraid to take on business debt. And that's what people don't understand. It's a different set ball game when you go into managing business debt versus personal debt. So getting them out of that is a scarcity mindset of learning. No, when you're growing and scaling a business, you want to do that with someone else's money. Like that's how you wanna do it. You don't wanna blow through your cash flow while you're scaling and growing. Once you get to a certain limit of excess in the cash flow over your goals that's set aside for that, certainly. But most of the time, the business owners we start working with have already made their first 7 figures and they're in heavy accelerated growth mode. Their operating cash flow cannot sustain growing a team and blowing through it. So really talking through that with them and helping them to understand and celebrate. Yes, you've done well on the personal side and managing that in a way that makes sense and you've grown and learned there. But this
Mhm.
is the way to manage debt and how to leverage growth through capital. It's even the language is different, right? In
It is
business.
a different language.
We
Yes.
call it growth through capital. And on personal side, we're like, oh, you in debt. You need to learn how to manage your debt for
Right. Right. You get
for
shamed for still having debt.
yeah, yeah, you do. And I think that's one thing that I see a lot is really educating them on what's the difference in growth through capital. And then with that, guiding them on the best ways to present the data to the lender or even investors that come through. Like it's more than yes, you need clean financial statements, your P&Ls and your balance sheets, but also we need to make sure that they're communicating the story that needs to be told for A, how you've managed your expenses and your assets, but B, what do you plan on doing with the money you're asking them for? You
Right.
have to go in with that from the beginning. A lot of people think that it's just the story behind the numbers of what the reports tell. And the reality is, no, I've seen people get loans based on where they're headed, the
Exactly.
forecast of what's to come. And that's where I see a lot of business owners, especially those that don't have fractional CFO services. They're just managing, which is a lot of businesses. They're just managing business through a bookkeeper and a tax CPA
Right.
and they usually don't have foresight. And that's where people don't understand where a CFO fractionally can really help you in your business is through foresight and through forecasting. And when you're ready for a grant or applying for a loan, and even with grants, it's a different ball game because yes, you can win that money, but then there's reporting that has to go back to that
Right.
on how you use that money, right?
That's right.
So even with that, they need to know how to set up their financials so when it's time to divulge that information in the reporting, it's an easy thing for you to do. And many people have never really had the discussion or don't even know to ask.
Mhm.
We have grown through the seasons, and I'm grateful that I mean, I guess it would have been nice to grow up with a silver spoon, but I'm grateful that
Uh-huh.
I don't know what that looks like because I know I wouldn't have the responsibility and care as much as I do now.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much even with my children, they definitely don't have a silver spoon, but they're definitely more well off than I ever was at their age. But at the same time, I do see gaps in like, oh, okay, I need to share this with them because I they don't know because they didn't have to do these things and overcome these areas like I did. So it is, I see business owners that are very successful in that space, but really helping them to overcome the spillage of what their scarcity in their personal life and really not creating the roadblock anymore in their business.
Mhm. I'm about to ask you kind of an involved question, and it's partly because of our own experience, but then also I would love to hear some of your insights on the clients that you serve. So, do you think that it is more a financial literacy issue for those that you serve, or is it more of a self worth issue as it relates to themselves paying themselves first from the perspective of one, how they're structured, and two, like you mentioned, where are you heading? Right. So, can you touch on that a bit?
Yeah, I see that all the time. I have a client right now who has doubled her revenue in the 2 years we've been working together and is
Okay.
still paying herself what she was paying herself 3 years ago in her business, which already wasn't the value of what she should be
Okay.
paid if she were working for someone else. And what I see is a mix. So I definitely see those who don't understand their value and therefore they just pay themselves what they think they need to survive in their personal life, right? They're not thinking legacy. Like, they're like, "Oh, I can pay myself $150,000 and live very comfortably. I travel well, my family is doing well." But then it's like, "Okay, you're doing great in that area, but we haven't talked about transition or exit planning." So, yes, you're doing well there, and you may have a little bit in savings, but we haven't tapped into 401ks that you should be paying yourself or growing through even other means of financial planning that they have never even heard of as a multi-million dollar company. It's like, no, I need to introduce you to a financial planner because there's far more than you can, yes, max out 25K or whatever your age range is for retirement, but we're beyond that. Like, you have netted $300,000 this year. We need to leverage more than a 401k at this point. So with that, it's a mix of yes, understanding their values, so they're not paying themselves enough, and a mix of lack of knowledge. But once I do guide them in the right place knowledge wise and guide them to the financial resources they need on personal wealth building side to get the knowledge, it's still like pulling teeth for them to
Mhm.
pay themselves more.
Yeah.
And I'll show them you can pay yourself another $50,000 a year. And it's like, no, I can't. Yes, you can. Let me show you how much it is. $50,000 a year. It's not $50,000 today. It's spread out over 12 months.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't turn on, and it's amazing to me because if you were doing the same thing for a corporation, you would be in the office fighting for a raise or you would apply for another job.
I was getting ready to say that. Yeah.
But since it's yours, for whatever reason, you don't do it.
Mhm.
And it's definitely an understanding their worth and value. And I also think it's partly because they are the business, right? And no matter, I think there's this mental block where no matter how successful you can get your business up to 30 million, and you still say, I have to pay 100 people and I have to make sure that these families eat and my family eat. So there's always going to be that part of you that's like, I'm not sure. Let me save this away in the business and not personally for that rainy day just in case, and not prioritizing yourself. But it's just like everything else. Once you do it, God makes a way for you. It's easy. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't even feel it at this point because you're doing it in a strategic way. You didn't just wake up today and say, no, I'm going to pay myself $200,000 knowing that your business ain't even bringing in enough to sustain that. You've
Mhm.
had the right resources. You've built the arsenal of experts and professionals to guide you to making that decision. So once you do it, it's never fails where you're like, oh, I don't even feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I think it's a mix and I see it. I see it literally every day. And I'm talking businesses that are not just multi-millions, but also very tenured. Like I'm talking 15, 20-year businesses that they've had.
Mm. Okay.
And they're still in that place of, I don't know. I had one client say to me, I'm not even making what I was making at the last corporate place I worked 15 years ago.
Ooh. Yeah. What
That's
about the ones that, like you just mentioned, they pay everyone else in the business? I'm guilty of that too. I
Mhm.
looked at the expenses that I had one year and I was like, I paid everybody but me. Literally. It was like an afterthought. Like, I wanna make sure that my vendors get paid. I wanna get paid, make sure that my 1099s get paid. And I was just looking like, wow, I'm on the poverty level. And I was a new six-figure earner at that time, fully self-sourced, no W-2 anywhere. And it felt good, right? Because I love supporting us. I love supporting those who show up for my brand. I wanna make sure that they get taken care of. But when I thought about it, I was like, did I pay myself any? And
Mhm.
like you said, you wanna make sure that your ends are covered. You take care of that, but it's like, no, you are the practitioner, you are the service provider. There is no business without you. It's
That
that mindset of, like, just being the responsible one, being the one that has the weight of it all. Um how do you convince or show them how to, like you mentioned, if you were in corporate, there would be a pay scale, there would be things that you could look forward to in terms of business and opportunities and incentives. Like, how do you create those for yourself?
Yeah, for me, so I currently at our firm, we have several fractional CFOs. So when people come on, they'll work with someone else. I am very strategic on who I hire as a CFO in the firm because relationships and being personable is key. So I need people who are willing to be vulnerable with where they are. And you see how forthcoming I am with my story with you. I'm the same way with my clients, right? And I need a team of fractional CFOs that's going to give that same comfort and that same no judgment feel to the clients when they come in. So I think KWK as a brand is very good and very big on personal relationships, non judgmental zone, and because we open up that way, it gives them a level of vulnerability that they turn into really, really quickly. When we have new team more members onboarding that Kommas with Kelly, they're always like, oh my God, they'll sit in on a meeting with like even a discovery call with me. And they're like, the way people open up to you to just share everything in the first 5 minutes is amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's because I'm vulnerable and God put us here to be a testament to other people and we pour into each other and that's how we get fed. So I really feel like as we're doing that, we're really growing a community of people. So I shared that because how I get people to get out of that mindset is I share my story and my journey. And I realized too that I'm sensitive to it being scary for them. So, although I do show them this is what you're worth, this is what you're, if you were to go apply for a job today, this is how much you should be asking for. I start
Mhm.
there. And then I ask them, how much would you be comfortable after this meeting setting up for your paycheck? Because it's not anything, it's not nothing.
Right.
And it's if you are, I'm asking you this because it's likely because what you're paying yourself now is not that either.
Mm,
So, what do you feel comfortable? And I talk them through those pieces. And that's how I guide the team too. Because most of our fractional CFOs have owned businesses. They're prior business owners that have scaled, grown, and sold. So they've exited their business. So they have full experience in all these areas we're talking about. So
mhm.
if we're guiding a client through that mindset shift, because that's what it is. We then say, okay, what's your top performing person on your team now? And what's your lowest performing person on your team right now? And talking them through that and how much are you paying those people? It really starts to give them a lens to let them really think through. And while we may not all the time resolve it on that hour strategy session with them on what the amount should be, we give them a goal that in the next week or two, we want to see you updating your amount to something else. So letting them guide it and baby steps initially, and then usually we take that next meeting and in between we do strategy sessions internally on all of our clients. So the
Okay.
fractional CFO will come back and say, hey, Dr. Constance she should be paying herself $300,000 annually. She's paying herself 125. We want to build out in the next 6 months to 12 months her to get up to 175, something that's reasonable. Even though you might be able to go straight to 300, that's going to be scary as heck for you. So let's get her to 175 by the end of this year. And the number is usually just a couple $1,000s more a month. Like that's all it is. And going back to them and saying, okay, great job last month, increasing. We saw you get paid yourself $500 more a month. Great. Here's a plan to show them in numbers. If you pay yourself 2,500, so $1,000 more a month over the next 6 months, this is what it'll look like on your cash flow. And it's usually no real impact. So they can see it, right? And after 6 months, we're going to up it to another $1,000. So in 6 months, you're going to be at 3,500. This will be the impact. If things remain the same, you get no new clients, you know, don't lose clients. This is where it'll be. That's how we work with them mindset wise, because a lot of it needs to be seen on
That's right.
paper for them not to be as afraid to make the leap. And being cautious and sensitive to this is scary for them.
Yeah.
And really not jumping in with both feet, but giving them a taste of, okay, here's a little here and a little there, and slowly getting them there.
Yeah, I love that. And similar in how I am able to serve my clients, a lot of my clients are pre-retirees. So they have already gotten to the point where they're starting to think about, hey, I'm getting out of here in about a
Yeah.
year or two or three. And I love that the math provides the clarity. The math provides the clarity that takes away the fears, that takes away the uncertainties. Because a lot of times, people want to do the right things with their money. They just need a professional to let them know that it's okay. And here's why it's okay. Don't just take my word for it. Let me show you what this looks like. And I had a tough lesson to learn when I was pivoting from my LLC that was just classified really as a sole proprietor versus LLC classified as the S Corp. And I was required to pay myself. Right. And that was like, whew,
Mhm.
I was like, I gotta get not just the bookkeeping, right? I've got to make sure that I have this payroll. I have my account set up to where the money can be withheld and sent to the IRS and sent to the local government. It was a lot. So, as you say, when people are like, oh, yeah, I can pay myself more, there's a lot more that goes into it. It's not just, oh, I'm gonna just transfer some money over to my checking account. Like, there is logistics and taxes and all of these legal things, do you find that you take that off of the plate for the clients, or do you still educate them on what is going on as it relates to the taxes?
Certainly, that's exactly what I was gonna say. No, we take all of that off of their plate. So, and we'll even work with your tax CPA on when is the right time to switch over to an S corp. So that's a lot of because there's a big talk about S corps now, and not everyone understands that whole payroll requirement. So they'll switch over as an S corp, and then we get them as a client, and we don't see any salaries and wages on the P&L, and we're like, "Hold on, I thought you said you were an S corp," and they're like, "Oh, I am." And we're like, "Well, what do you do?" "Oh, I draw out a payment to myself a month, depending on how much money I bought in." Well, that ain't how it works.
Withdrawals are not income. I had to learn that the hard way, right?
Yep.
I'm paying myself look, that's
A draw,
profit.
yeah. Say it for the people in the back. Draws
The
are not.
draws are not income, it's profit. So meaning it doesn't even show up on your Social Security earnings.
Thank
So if
you.
you just take draws, you made no
They
income
know
for
it.
that year that goes into your Social Security account. So these are tough lessons. Of course, if you just don't know, you're focused on growing the business, you're focused on being the face of the brand, however, but these things are really, really important. So I'm grateful that there are people like you and me and some of our other colleagues that are like not just vulnerable, sharing our stories and how this works, but also being like, listen, you've got what it takes.
Yeah.
Let's just structure things the right way.
Yeah, and that's why I enjoy what we do and taking those pieces off their plates because for us, for you and I, we're finance mindset. So we can go and do all of those things and do it a lot faster, quite frankly, than most every average everyday person. So I like to keep clients in their high revenue zone. So it only makes sense that with that being said, because that's where you're going to make the money, is doing what you're passionate in and where the money comes in at in high revenue zone. So with that being said, we take all of those little pieces that are pivotal and important, especially for compliance purposes, that you either shouldn't be doing, even if you can, because quite frankly, you and I, we can do our bookkeeping, we can do our bank reconciliations, we can do all of those. Should I be doing it? Is the
Absolutely
thing.
not. It takes away so much energy and time. And like you said, you can't produce and also be in the operations of it all.
Mhm. Yeah. So yes, we do take those things off of their plates, letting them know when is the proper time. Most of our clients that come in, they've already become S corp because, like I said, they're pretty established. But definitely, they're not paying themselves a reasonable compensation that the IRS would classify as that. And then even when I say that, they're like, "Huh?" I'm like, "No one has ever talked to you about a reasonable compensation calculation," and they're like, "No."
Mhm.
So, yes, there is something that the IRS deems you as the CEO title that you got blasted across everything. Are you paying yourself a CEO wage? Because it's what it is. So many of us are carrying these titles. That's a different thing in our business and not paying ourselves. And it's more than just your self worth and value, it's an IRS classification. That it's like, okay, if you were the CEO of a business of this size and this revenue, how much should you be paying yourself? And there's so many compliance issues behind it. So we really do take all of those things off their plate and yes, educate them. So we don't want to bombard them. Even when I have a new fractional CFO starting and they're learning our profit acceleration methodology, I sit with them and spend a lot of time coaching on how they deliver the information to our
Mm,
CEOs.
okay.
Because email, usually people that are in the mindset we're talking about and they're high achieving, another long ass email is going to drive them up a wall.
Been there. Been there.
So I will tell the new person, I read these emails and I'm like, don't send her that. Don't.
Right.
Yes, everything you're saying in there is 100% accurate. It's 100% information she needs to know, but she don't need to get this in this email right
She
now.
gonna click in and click right back out. I ain't
And
got the
she gonna
time right
oh,
now.
I ain't got the time, or she gonna read it. If she does read it, she's gonna get overwhelmed because we're here to make you feel less pressure. And if I send you a whole email or, hey, you're an S Corp, you need to be paying yourself this. This is a reasonable compensation analysis. This is how we're going to get you there. You're going to be like, oh no, how? What am I going to do? And you're going to just get overwhelmed and fall down a rabbit hole. I
Mhm.
tell them all the time, pick up the phone, schedule a meeting with them, and just talk it over with them first. Then send the email because then it's just a recap of everything that you just talked about. So they just have it in their arsenal.
Yeah.
So we're big on educating them. So they're creating that's why I tell people when you are investing in fractional CFO services, you are investing in not just your business, but your personal and your family's legacy and financial acumen. Because everything you learn here, you're going to pour it into your children, your grandchildren, whoever is the legacy person of your business. They're going to benefit from all the things you put into place. So, yes, education is key, but I'm big on at what points do we deliver that information? Because I want it to stick and not feel like overload.
Yeah, yeah. And I believe too, I used to do workshops called Who's on Your Financial Dream Team? Who's on your financial dream team? Because I believe that having a team of people, whether you use them all at the same time or not, but having someone to call, to email when you have questions about your personal finance or your business finance, that to me is self care. Because you know you don't have to wear all the hats, you don't have to carry all the weight. They call it bail, where you have your banker, your attorney, your insurance agent, that kind of thing, and also fractional CFO. If you are not that person in your business, that you could hire out and have a partner, right? Not You're not an employee of the business, but you are a partner to the business. And that partner understands the inner workings, where you're headed, where you are right now. And I believe that that is part of self-care. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love how you said that because when I do speaking engagements, I have one that's called Who's Your Top Five? Who's in your top five financial team? And it's very similar. It's your accounting or bookkeeper, your tax CPA, your attorney, your insurance person, and your fractional CFO. And a lot of people, this area is new. The fractional space is still a budding word of sorts for many people, so they don't quite understand where we are. So I appreciate platforms like this to give people education on what they need in their top five. But exactly what you're saying, those people are who do I pick up the phone? You should have your advisory board, your top five, your bail, who's on your team so you can just pick up the phone and ask questions. KWK, because of that too, we have a 24/7 client portal where people can go in 24/7, ask questions, and we respond in 48 hours or less to the question. If you're a client, it doesn't always have to be business, it can be a personal finance question. It is so important to have those people. And even for me, I've only worked in finance my whole life. I knew I wanted to be an accountant in my cotillion bio, which I share when I do engagements in person with the cockeyed black and white photo from the 90s when my eyebrows was razor thin. I don't know why we did that to
Why
ourselves.
did we do that, Lord?
But at the bottom, I share it says when Kelly grows up, she wants to be an accountant. And it's literally all I've ever done. My first job was an accounting clerk. When I was volunteering, I always did something in finance and accounting. So with that, I do have a lot of background in education, but even for me, I have a business advisor and a CFO
Right.
because I need somebody that has a different lens and that's not emotionally attached to Commas with Kelly. And that's where we feel that space because, like you said, we're not an equity partner. So we're not taking a percentage of your equity off of the business. We're not on your W 2. We're not even that long term of a commitment. 6 months to 12-month commitments are all we ask for. So it's short term, high yield, but at the same time, and most importantly, it's someone that's coming in from a different lens that's not emotionally attached like you or even your partners probably are in the business.
Mhm. I love that. Well, you have shared so much light with us today. from your story and even how you support your clients. Before we head out, I just have a question. We have a segment called the Money Talks Moment. And this is a opportunity for you to share it, whether it's a personal experience or a business experience, where there was something really challenging in your life financially. And at the time, it felt so suffocating. It felt so difficult, so hard. But then when you look back in retrospect, you were like, I'm actually glad that happened because it has whatever it has done. Can you recall a time like that where it actually became a light for you or it caused a pivot in your life that you're grateful for?
I think for me, I have so many and I'm grateful for them. We talked earlier about just, I am grateful for the challenges. The one that I would probably elaborate more on, I touched on earlier, is when I was living off of payday loans. Now I'm blessed to say I don't even know. I'm sure they still do payday loans. I know there was a lot of regulation around them because I was doing payday loans then when they would take it, it was highway robbery. Like I would literally get so payday loans, for those who may not know, are literally loans that fund you next to next payday. So you send in and it really was either no social security, like no credit requirement, or was a very low credit score requirement, but you would send in your pay stubs and it would basically advance you whatever your payday was. And when you got paid, they will automatically debit your bank account for whatever it was you were due to them. And I remember at one point I had three payday loans at a time because I needed a payday loan to cover another payday loan because I just didn't have enough to get through to the next payday.
Mm.
And it felt so suffocating because those loans were like, and I'm not even exaggerating. That was why I think the DIC mandated some issues behind them because they were like 900% yields on those things. It was something dumb. Like you were not gonna get out of it on your own. And it definitely felt like I was suffocating myself. And now, after I was able to dig, and it took a couple years to get out of that cycle, I am still grateful that I went through it because it helps me have a heart for clients that come to us that are in between. Oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to make the next payroll,
Mhm.
and they're clicking on that short-term loan that QuickBooks then popped up and showed them you are already pre-approved for, and it's almost the equivalent of the payday loans. Like the yield, it's just insane how much they'll pay back. But me going through that experience, I can have the compassionate heart to understand the desperation that they feel in that moment, but also advise them on why that may not be the best short term solution. And here are other options that may be better for you. And if it is the best one, this is the way we're going to recover from this so we can pay this off quickly and not do this again. So that would definitely be, I'm as hard as that season was and paying back, and girl, when I think about it, then I was maybe making 30, $40,000 a year, if that, at that point.
Yeah.
And living off of payday loans at that with my toddler child, a single mom, was such a tough season. But it really, we talk about resilience all the time. It really made me resilient. And moreover, it really prepared me for a space like today that I truly didn't know I would be in, and clients to trust me in that space too.
Yeah, yeah. I got caught up in that payday loan trap too, and like you said, it's hard to get out of because they take it right out. As soon as your money hits, they take it right out with the fees. And it just you feel like you gotta get another one because they just took everything you had. So I love how your vulnerability to let people know that even if you are in that situation, it doesn't have to be forever, right? You can get out of it. And before we get off, if you could please share with the audience, how can they find you if they have a question or even if they want to retain your services?
Sure. So you can find me on all social media platforms at Commas with Kelly. So that's Kommas with Kelle. And our website is commaswithkelly.com. Or you can just Google my name and you'll find me all over social media.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I've learned a lot and I love chatting with you and going down memory lane with those things that we did that was not as advantageous, but we did recover from it. And that's our episode today of Money Talks Wealth Beyond Numbers with Dr. Constance and Kelly Thorpe. Please remember that you've got to take care of yourself just as much, if not more, than you take care of your money. And until next time, be well.